Guys, so it now gives me great pleasure to Danny. Welcome, Danny. Danny, thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danny. I'm a cocaine addict. My sobriety date is November 21st, 1991. And I'm glad to be here with you. Thanks, Nick. So anyway, I'm glad that I'm here with you guys. I know Tobias. I think I know a couple of the other guys too. So anyway, step one is to me very misunderstood. A lot of the steps are misunderstood, but step one is because what we have today is we have people come into recovery and they ask somebody to sponsor them, and the sponsor says to them, "Are you powerless over alcohol and drugs?" And they say, "Yeah." And is your life unmanageable? They say, "Yeah." Okay. You believe in a God? No. Are you willing to believe in a God? I guess so. Okay. And they immediately take them to the fourth step, and they start writing an inventory. And what happens when that goes on like that is 1/4 of the steps are gone. You've missed the first three steps, which is the foundation of our program. So when somebody says, most people don't really even understand why they're powerless, and I find that to be amazing, going around the rooms. But if you went to any meeting, you asked everybody separately in that meeting, "Why are you powerless?" You're going to get some answers. The most common answers to that question is, "Oh, once I start using, I can't stop," or "It controls me. I just can't. I have no control over it." And I think the important thing to learn from that is that your lack of control, your loss of control, your inability to control is not why you're powerless. Those are results of being powerless, but that's not why you're powerless. And so that's important there. And the other thing is, and I ask people all the time, what is the first step in recovery? And everybody always says, we admitted we were powerless over cocaine, all other mind-altering substances, that our lives have become unmanageable. That is not the first step in recovery. That is the first of the 12 steps. The first step in recovery you find on page 30 in the second paragraph. It says, I'll read it to you. So second paragraph, page 30, we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. Then it says right after that, this is the first step in recovery. So right there on page 30, it's telling you what the first step in recovery is. It's not on page 58 there where the 12 steps are listed. And why is that? Why is this the first step in recovery and not admitting we were powerless? That's an important question. And that is the difference between understanding this program and not, and just following the bullshit that you hear in the rooms. And so the answer to that is that once I learned how to fully concede to my innermost self, that I'm an alcoholic or that I'm an addict or whatever you want to say, then when I get to page 59 and I get to the first of the 12 steps, and it says, we admitted we were powerless over cocaine and all other mind-altering substances, that our lives have become unmanageable. Once I've fully conceded to my innermost self and then get to that, now I can admit to a degree and at a depth that makes sense. Because if you don't fully concede to your innermost self before you get, if you don't do the first step in recovery, and you just go to the first of the 12 steps, the only thing you can do is agree with the statement on page 59. that says step one. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's the only thing you can do, is agree to that. But most people have no understanding what they're actually agreeing to, because they didn't do what it says to do on page 30. And so the book is so brilliantly written and so perfectly put together that if you follow the directions in the book as it's written, you can have a much truer recovery and a much more spiritual life. If not, you're just staying. I find people to be stark raving sober, just not very spiritual. So I think that's an important understanding. And again, like if you ask the people in the rooms, why you're powerless, the reasons for that you'll get are if you ask 100 people, you might get one or two that have the right reason. The rest of them are just talking about, their lack of control, their loss of control, their inability to control, and they don't understand the first step. Because a lot of the sponsorship today that happens is just skimming through and getting to an inventory and not talking about God and not talking about the disease concept, and just getting right to an inventory, which is not what this program is asking us to do. Does anybody have a question on that? You just raise your little hand there. Well, Linda, is there not a, I'm not so good with the computers. Is there a hand on here that you raise? Isn't there? But I saw your hand go up, Linda, so that's good enough. Oh.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm a member of Cocaine Anonymous here in Germany, and it's grateful to be here. Can you please, because my English is not the best, could you please repeat the part of the page 30 you just talked about the powerless thing? Please repeat this for me.
Sure. On page 30, the second paragraph on page 30, it says, we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. The next sentence says, this is the first step in recovery. Okay. So when you ask somebody what the first step in recovery is and they tell you we admitted we were powerless, they don't understand that there's a step before the step, and there's work has to be done before you get to the 12 steps. Yeah. Is that Reese?
Hi, mate. Reece Andy. I've never noticed that wee part when you were reading through the book, to our innermost self. I was actually speaking with someone in a meeting in Glasgow last night, and I was asking, when do you know you've conceded to your innermost self? When does that realization come? And I never really had an answer for it. I was just wondering if I could ask yourself, when do you know that you've conceded to that? Because I've been in recovery now for 2 years, and I've been in and out struggling, and I'm 30 days today, and I'm just wondering, like, when does that click? When do you realise that? So
So you're asking me when do you know you've done the first step?
yes,
Right?
when do you have that realization that you've conceded to yourself?
Well, the short answer to that is you don't drink and don't use. That's the short answer to that. You're sober. The longer answer to that is that you've actually done the work. How do you fully concede to your innermost self? There's ways to do that. I have a little exercise. It's kind of long. I won't go into it here. In case anybody's interested, I have YouTube videos. I don't make anything off of them, so I'm not pitching you to do something here. It's just all free. And it's, if you go to YouTube, there's BB Study 2022. That's a 30-week course that I've done, 1 hour a week. And I've been doing this course for over 30 years. But in 2022, we got it on film. We put it on YouTube. And 2025, this year, I did the same course again, a little shorter, 25 or 26 weeks, or 23 or something like that. I cut it down because of the time constraint where we were at. But
No, not mine.
each one of those videos is an hour long, and they go in depth to anything I'm going to share about today and anything I have shared about already. So if you're interested in that, and here's a really cheap plug here. It's also in my book that's been out for many years. It's called The 20 Most Misunderstood, Misinterpreted Mistakes of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's the book. And so anyway, and that is a cheap plug because I actually do make money off of that, but you don't need to buy the book. You can watch the videos for free. I don't make any money off of that. But anyway, there's an exercise you can do that helps you fully concede to your innermost self. But thank you. Anybody else have a question? Okay. So we can talk about, yes, Joe.
Yeah, if I could ask one. So you was talking about your powerlessness. What's your powerlessness? How can you describe your powerlessness before you come into recovery?
Oh, my powerlessness is that I can't stop doing it. I don't want to do it. I swear I'm not going to do it no more, but I can't stop. I find myself doing it over and over again. So when we talk about powerless and powerlessness, this is not something that you do in recovery. This is something you do all those years before you get to recovery. And now all you need to do when you get to recovery now is take a look at that with some help. So, you know, and in our big book, it talks about, you know, the disease that we have. And he says that it makes sense to laymen like us, you know, which is very, very strong because what it's telling us is that there's something the matter with me, both physically and mentally. So the physical part, once you're sober, the physical part of this disease never comes into play unless you drink or use. So the day that you get sober, even this gentleman with 30 days, Reese with 30 days sober, the physical part of this disease will never affect Reese again unless he drinks or uses. So that leaves, there's a thing in our book that talks about, you know, what is the, here's my question to you. You have a disease of mind and body, a twofold disease. Which one can you do something about?
The mental.
The mental? Okay. That's actually not correct, Joe, because, and here's the reason why. You can do something about the physical. You can actually not put a drug or a drink into your body. Now, it may not be easy, but you have the ability to not do that. But you do not have the ability to not think. And in our book, it tells us that the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body.
Yeah.
Therefore, you know, the main problem centers in your mind rather than your body. So the book is telling us that you can do something. You can't do nothing about your mind. You cannot not think. And I think everybody would agree on the fact that if I try to not think about drugs and alcohol, I'm going to think more about them. It's just the way our minds work, right? So the idea is not about not thinking. The idea is about acknowledging my thinking and not going there. So I have a disease of mind, a disease of body. I can control the disease of body, or I can do something about it. Maybe control is not the right word. I could not drink or use, but I cannot not think. So I need to be careful about my thinking. You know, in AA, there's an old saying, it's stinking thinking leads to drinking. You know, so we need to be careful with that. Stinking thinking leads to drinking. Anyway, so yeah, but to answer your question, how has my powerless got me? The same way it got everybody else. I didn't want to do it. I swear I wasn't going to do it, and I did it again and again and again. So
Yeah.
that's.
Thank you for that.
Who's this? Anna Marie? Anna, is it Anna Marie? Got a hand up?
It is Annemiek. Annemiek.
I'm Meek. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Thank you.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm Annemiek and I'm an addict. My question is, can you tell me the difference between when I'm powerless and taking something in my body, like a drink or drug, or when I'm powerless, and I have the allergy reaction, when I'm, for example, with buying things or binging with Netflix, or then I'm also powerless. But can you tell me the difference?
Yes. Good question. There's two forms of powerless. There's the powerless we've been talking about so far is powerless before I drink or use. And then we all can agree that we're powerless in a different sense once we do drink or use. There's no stopping, you know, there's no controlling it once I drink or use. So, but the main powerless is why stone cold sober I sabotage my life over and over again by taking that. You know, Dr. Silkworth has some very interesting writing in the big book. And what he talks about, if you notice his writing, he uses the word allergy over and over again. He doesn't use the word addiction. He uses the word allergy. Okay. So do you know, this is an important thing, the difference between an allergy and an addiction. I will tell you. And this is very important, actually. I think this will clarify your question for you. If you've ever known anybody, or maybe one of you people were addicted to heroin, let's say, right? When they take a shot of heroin and appease their addiction, it lessens the desire for another hit. It's temporary, but it lessens the desire for another hit. You know, it's like you're addicted to nicotine. You smoke a cigarette, it lessens the desire for another cigarette. Mm-hmm. It's temporary, but it lessens the desire. So an addiction, when you appease the addiction, it lessens the desire for more. It's temporary, but it lessens the desire for more. An allergy, if you know anybody like me, I suffer from hay fever badly. Sometimes I get it, I want to take a fork and rub my eyes. It's just that bad. And my nose runs, and I get it really bad. And if somebody's allergic to chocolate or strawberries or whatever it is, and they eat it and they break out in a rash, right? They get the hives. What happens when you appease that rash, when the itch is so bad that you scratch it? It greatens the desire for more. It doesn't lessen the desire. When you scratch that rash, it makes you want to scratch more, right? That is an allergy. And that's why the Dr. Silkworth uses the word allergy rather than addiction. Because what he says is we have an allergy. And that means that when I set this allergy off, when I appease an allergy and I ignite the allergy, it greatens the desire for more. And that explains to me, and it explained to Bill, he wrote in the book that explained to him why once you drink or use, the phenomenon of craving develops. See, the phenomenon of craving does not develop from your thinking. Mm-hmm. Now, the obsession is about your thinking. But the truth of the matter is you can control what you put in your body, but you cannot control your mind. So the obsession is so strong, but once you ignite the allergy there's no, now we're in a degree of powerlessness that nobody can predict how it's going to end up. But when you're not drinking and not using, the powerless there is, why do I do it when I don't want to do it? Why do I do it when I swear I'm never going to do it again? And that's the degree of powerless that gets us all, we have to deal with. I hope that answered your question. But it's very interesting if you read Dr. Silkworth's writing, and you'll see how he uses the word allergy. Good question, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Anybody else have a question? Or okay, Kim.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, Kim.
Hi. My name is Kim, drug addict. Two questions, if that's all right. The first is, you said twofold disease. Now, I've heard other people say threefold. I believe it's twofold, and then the spiritual malady anyone can have, regardless of having an addiction. But could you elaborate more on the twofold, please?
Sure. Listen, I've been doing workshops. I'm going to Chicago next weekend to do a 3-day big book study. I was scheduled in Ireland, but they just canceled it yesterday. And I just did one in Scotland this year. So I go all over the world and I do these studies. And this is the biggest controversy there is, okay? People that believe that there's a threefold disease. The malady, everybody is spiritually ill. Everybody's spiritually sick. Every human being in the world, even Mother Teresa when she was alive. We're all spiritually sick. But being spiritually sick does not equate you being alcoholic. Okay? So I'll say it like this. Every alcoholic is spiritually sick, but not every spiritually sick person is alcoholic. Okay? And just to go a little bit further than that, I figured this might come up, so I have my flyers and my brochures here. There's 3. AA has lots of brochures. Okay. I just have 3 of them here. Okay. And this one says, "This is AA, an introduction to the AA recovery program." And it says, well, there's no formal definition of alcoholism. Most of us agree that for us, it could be described as a physical compulsion coupled with a mental obsession. Doesn't say anything about spiritual. This one is there an alcoholic in your life? And this one says, the alcoholic is a sick person suffering from a disease for which there is no known cure. That is, no cure in the sense that he or she will ever be able to drink moderately like a non-alcoholic for any sustained period. Because it is an illness, a physical compulsion combined with a mental obsession to drink, the alcoholic must learn to stay away from the alcohol completely in order to lead a normal life. But it says physical compulsion combined with a mental obsession. Doesn't say anything about spiritual. This one says frequently asked questions about AA. And the explanation that seems to make sense to most AA members is that alcoholism is an illness, a progressive illness, which can never be cured, but which, like so many other diseases, can be arrested. Going one step further, many of us feel that the illness represents the combination of a physical sensitivity to alcohol and a mental obsession with drinking. No mention of spiritual. Okay, so it is not AA's opinion that we have a threefold disease. Usually, when you ask somebody, why do they say it's a threefold disease? The only place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that they can go to is page 64. And if you turn to page 64, the last paragraph says, resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. And so they say, look, Danny, right there, spiritual disease. The book says spiritual disease. Right there, it says it, spiritual disease. So, but here's the thing to that. What are they talking about? they're not talking about alcoholism in this paragraph. They're talking about resentment. It says, resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it, from what? Not alcoholism, from resentment. It stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. So let me break that down a little bit more for you. I'm sure everybody here at one point in their life has had the flu, right? And if you're home sick with the flu and your friend calls you up and asks you how you're doing, nobody that I have ever met answers that question with, when they say, how you doing? Oh, I have influenza. Nobody says that.
No.
When somebody asks you how you doing, your answer to that is, I got the fever, I'm sweating, I keep running to the toilet, I'm shaking, I got the chills, I just don't, I feel like I got beat up. What we do is we describe the symptom of our disease. The disease is influenza. The sickness is all of the way I feel. And on page 64, Bill's doing the same thing. He's describing the symptoms of what we have by saying that that's why he says we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. So the spiritually sick part is the results of my disease, which is mental and physical. My disease is alcoholism, which is a mental and physical disease. There's nowhere in this book, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, besides that page 64, which is not talking about alcoholism, there's nowhere in this book that it says we have a threefold disease. Now, some people over the years that I've questioned go to the part where they talk about the what is that? Oh God, I just drew a blank. They talk about the bedevilments, okay, and what page is that on the bedevilments? Anyway, if you look at the bedevilments, what it talks about in the first sentence of that paragraph, I'm not sure what page it's on, but the first sentence of what page?
Page 52, the bedevilments are.
52?
Yeah.
52. Oh yeah, thank you. So it says we had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relations, blah, blah, all this stuff. And it goes over the bedevilments. So people have told me that the bedevilments is the spiritual disease. No, we're not. Look what it says in the first sentence. We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems. The book is calling the bedevilment human problems. The book is not calling the bedevilments a disease or describing it as a disease. It's describing it as human problems. Every human being is spiritually sick to different degrees. Being spiritually sick does not define you as an alcoholic or an addict. So, Kim, that was a long answer to your question, but I hope it satisfied you with that. You said you had another question, Kim? Did we lose
That's
Kim?
another question.
Trying to unmute. There we go. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
I had another question. Okay, so can't remember, Danny, what it is now. I'm gonna let someone else go, okay?
Yes. Did my answer help you?
Absolutely, like 100%.
Okay.
I
Right.
I knew it was a twofold disease upon asking you, but I really needed to hear why, and your explanation was just right on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And
Can I ask my question?
yes, go ahead.
It is about lack of power is our dilemma. That's what they say. And how is that that is for us alcoholics, and but normal people who has also a spiritual disease, because I also believe that all people in the world has that. And but how is it with lack of power? Is that our solution, or it, that we find that power, or
Well, I think that applies to everybody in the world. Lack of power, in what areas and to what degree. So, but for us, it's a dilemma because, and the reason it's a dilemma for us is because we think not.
is
We
that
think we
that we
don't.
have
We think we don't lack power. We think we got the power. We think who we are and how big we are and how great we are. That's a common trait amongst alcoholics and addicts, that we think too high of oneself. Right?
Mhm.
Pride is believing a belief that I'm too high of myself. Right? And we suffer from that more so than, I think if you took any feeling and emotion and multiplied it by 100, you have an alcoholic and an addict. I think that separates us from a normal person. That's not in the book. That's just my opinion. But anyway, so it's the dilemma is because I think we struggle with the fact that we lack power, but we don't know it. We don't believe it. And the bottom line, the end result of that at the end of the day is we lack power because we don't have God in our lives and God controlling our lives, and a God that we follow it. There's two wills. There's self will and God's will. We certainly aren't in God's will when we get here. We're in self will. So and that's why the dilemma is that we lack power. We don't know who really has the power. That's the dilemma. We think we have it, or she has it, or he has it, or they have it. If I can only find it and get it and keep it, but it's God that has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right. Glenn? Is it Glenn? I'm terrible at pronouncing these names.
Hi, I'm Silena. I'm an addict from the Netherlands. I was reading the family afterward, and at the end of the page, on page 135, we have three little motifs, which are, for me, sometimes the English is very difficult for me to,
Mottos.
pronounce.
Three mottos which are apropos.
They are first things first, live and let live, easy does it. Is it that because they're saying in a 3 sentence, is it that first things first, do your step work? I don't really understand it.
So over here they're not talking specifically about the steps. They're talking about, this is in the chapter that's in the family afterward. And what they're talking about is pretty much generally in life. If we could learn how to, first things first, and live my life and let you live your life, and easy does it. Like there's, I think the equivalent would be that there's two rules, to life. One, don't sweat the small stuff, and two, there ain't no big deals. So if there's no big deals, everything's small stuff, don't sweat it. So keep things in perspective. Live your life, not controlling other lives, and take it easy and do things easily. So can you apply that to the steps? Yes, but they're not specifically talking about steps. They're talking about in generally living life here.
Okay. I thought they were referring to the step work.
No,
Okay,
they're
thank you.
not. Yeah. But they are 3 good rules to live by, certainly. Yes. I tell you what, since it seems like we can go the whole hour and we only talked about step 1. Why don't I just do this? Why don't we just open it up to anybody talk about any step they want, any question they have about any part of any of the steps or sponsorship or that kind of stuff, and we'll just keep doing questions. That seems to be working well. Is that okay with you guys? Good. Okay. All right. Who has a question about any of the steps or anything? Don't get quiet on me now, guys.
Well, not because you've
All right,
spoke about step 1 a little bit, the powerlessness and that. What's your understanding around step 2?
Step 2 is
Yeah.
that's where the search for God begins.
Yeah.
In step 2. So in let me see here. So on page 45 in the book, it says lack of power was our dilemma, right? We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how are we to find this power? So right there is where the search for God begins. And luckily, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I have a basis of what works for me on my concept of God. And here's an important thing. The book says we're going to talk about God, but we don't talk much about God. And if you got a sponsor that's not talking to you about God, all right, let me say this to you. There's a couple of qualifications in this book about who and what a God can be. Okay? And let's see here. Let me see. So, I'm sorry, I'm looking for on. So the 2 qualifications for who and what a God can be is the first one is in the step itself. Step 2, it says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So it's saying the first qualification that this entity has to be a power greater than ourselves. That's the first. And the second one is on page 94 or 96 or something like that. It says that it's on page 93. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. So the second qualification is it must make sense to you. Now, you'll hear some people in the rooms talk about use a light bulb or a door or a tree for your God. Those people are insane. Run away from those people because they have. That's not the qualifications of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. A tree, I could chop your tree down, your light bulb will blow out, and I could kick your door in. Then what? You're totally godless, right? So it has to be a power greater than ourselves, and it has to make sense to you. Now, there are people that come into the rooms that it makes sense to them that a tree could be their higher power. That's why the sponsor and them need to talk about God. Because it may make sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to us. It doesn't qualify as a spiritual entity, a higher power, a creator of the universe. All those terms that Bill uses for a higher power. So it has to make sense. So if you say that the light bulb is your higher power, you might not be in the right room. You might need one of those rooms that they put you in this funny jacket that's got pads on the walls and stuff, because there's something seriously wrong with you if you think that a light bulb is a higher power. It is not. Okay, a light bulb is a light bulb. Let's talk about that. So if I'm your sponsor and I'm going to talk to you about God, I want you to tell me some important things. I want you to write down for me who and what God is to you. What do you think and believe about God? Now, it don't have to be anywhere close to my concept. I one time sponsored a Native American out here, and his God was the wind. And I don't get that, and I don't agree with that, but that's fine for him according to our literature, because the wind is a power greater than us. I know we have tornadoes here in Oklahoma. I can assure you that the wind is a power greater than us. And if it makes sense to him, fine, go with it. And again, so you don't have to agree with my concept. It just has to make sense to you, and it has to be a power greater than us. And so I sponsored him with the understanding, but he had an understanding of who and what God was for him, because that understanding takes place in step 2. How do I know that? Look what it says in step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. Past tense. Doesn't say as we understand him. It says as we understood him. Understood is past tense. That means that the understanding of God came before step 3. It came in step 2 when we talked about God. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question, though. Linda, you got your hand up there?
Yeah, hey Danny, it's Linda again. I've worked the steps a few times here for a couple of years. So now the alcohol and drug problem is taking away, right? But there's still candy, nicotine, caffeine, food, all the other stuff still there going on. Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience. I've got 34 years being sober of experience in life, and with that comes everything that life throws your way, and that's what 6 and 7 is all about. It's working on those things. But in order for you to work on those things first have to become objectionable to you. That's what. Yes, objectionable, because that's why our literature says that. Bill says that some of these defects we don't want to get rid of because we like them or we really love them. So I quit smoke. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 40 years, and I quit cigarettes 14 years ago by vaping. And I have no desire to give up the vaping. I enjoy it. So that's my one vicarious thing in life today that I have is my vaping. I enjoy it. I like it. It is, my doctor tells me if it was between cigarettes and vaping, vaping is better. If it's between vaping and nothing, nothing is better. I said, I'm happy in the middle. So I'm okay with my vaping. But the cigarettes became objectionable to me. One day when I was living in Florida, I had a 2-story house. I climbed the steps. When I got to the top step, I couldn't breathe. I had to grab the banister. I saw little stars. I almost fainted. And I said, damn, I got to quit smoking. And it took me about a month between smoking, vaping. And 2 weeks after I started vaping, with no cigarettes, just vaping, I literally ran up those flight of steps and was not out of breath when I got to the top. And I get my physical twice a year, and every year since then, my lungs are coming back clear. And that's after 40 years of 2 packs a day. So the vaping to me is something that is not objectionable, so I'll keep doing it. Now, other habits and things, yes. And I think the best way to deal with 6 and 7 is to make a list of your defects in 6, write the opposites next to them.
Mhm.
Take the most blaring and glaring one and bring it into your 11th step in the morning and ask God to give you awareness on that. And I have a little saying I use with 6 and 7. 6 is don't do what you want to do. 7 is make yourself do what you don't want to do. And that produces change. You know, you have to unlearn these things. So here's what we do. We slay the defect with non-action, and we change the defect with action. So we don't do the defect, we don't do that, and we do the opposite of that. It's kind of like if you take a little kid, 5 years old, and every day you bring them outside and you practice a half an hour every day playing basketball, teaching them how to dribble, how to do layups, how to shoot, every day, half an hour a day. He's 5 years old. Every day you teach them that. You know what? That kid does not grow up to be a hockey player. We are what we do.
Mhm.
When I got sober, I thought we are what we think. No. Because I never went in front of the judge and he sentenced me for what I think. He always sentenced me for what I did, unfortunately. So the idea then that, we have these things, and little by little, one at a time, over the years, as you keep practicing these principles, all of these things on your list will become objectionable. And you can remove them and you can change them. Yes, I'm coming up next month, 34 years sober. I still vape. I like it. I enjoy it. I have no desire. It is not objectionable to me. It has no smell. I don't do a flavor. It's just oil and nicotine. And I enjoy it. So one day, if it becomes objectionable to me, I'll quit it. I know I have the capacity to do that because I've had the capacity to quit many defects over the years. I hope that helped you. Calvin?
Hello, good evening. I'm Calvin. I'm an addict. Um, my when I was listening to you, I was hearing you talk about that the disease is not in the body, it's in your mind. And I've been sober for around 11 months now.
Wait, hold on 1 second, Calvin. Let me just stop you for a minute. I did not say that. I said the disease is of body and mind. But the part that you can do something about that's what I was talking about. But go ahead. Finish your question.
I'm sorry. I okay, yes. And I am experiencing that my mind is still sick, even though I'm working the steps, I'm doing the right things. My thoughts can be very dark sometimes, and the problem with me right now is that I believe them. So my question to you is well, I don't really know how to explain it to you. How can I not? I don't know how to say it, man. My thoughts can overwhelm me, and I don't know how to not get emotional about what I'm thinking.
Yeah. How long are you sober, Calvin?
About 11 months.
Okay. Well, you don't change a lifetime of bad habits in 11 months. That's number one. And that's why our book says it's about progress, not perfection. It's not to be used as a cop out or a scapegoat to keep acting out badly. That's not what that saying is about. But it is true that you're not gonna reach a level of spirituality where we're not saints. What we are is we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. So when you start feeling like that, you need to talk to your sponsor or anybody in the rooms. You need to pick up the phone. You need to get your ass to a meeting. You need to go, you need to utilize the spiritual kit of tools that lay at your feet. It is so important to do that. If you're a carpenter and you go to work and you didn't bring your tools, you're pretty much going to get fired because you're going to stand around doing shit all day. You know, you have a bag of tools that you need to bring to work with you. Well, you have a spiritual kit of tools. They're laid at your feet. Pick them up and utilize them. Get on your knees and ask God for help. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Go to a meeting where you're around recovering people. Share with them how you're feeling and what you're going through. You'll get through all this stuff without screwing up if you do those things. There's always three things, Calvin, that you can do no matter what point of recovery you're at, whether you're 11 months sober or 40 years sober. And those three things work for everybody. And here they are. You might want to write this down. Talk about it, write about it, pray about it. Whatever's going on in your life, talk about it, write about it, pray about it. Take a piece of paper and write everything on one side. If you do what you're thinking, what can happen, and everything on the other side, or the good things that can happen if you do what you're thinking, and on the other side, the bad things that can happen if you do what you're thinking. That's your writing about it. Talk about it. Call somebody in the rooms and tell them what's going on in your head and what you're thinking about. And then get on your knees and ask God. Talk about it, write about it, pray about it. If you do that, almost 100% of the time, you're going to make the right decision and do the right thing. Talk about it, write about it, pray about it, the greatest tool in recovery. So I don't know, what time is this meeting over?
We still have about half an hour, Danny.
Oh, we got, okay. So it's a
About
90-minute meeting.
minutes or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So anyway, Calvin, those three tools I just gave you will help a lot. Bill, you got your hand up? Bill from Connecticut. All right, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Thank you for the meeting, everybody. So there was something just put in the chat that maybe you can talk about. It was put in the chat by Sue about deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And I think when we come in here, we sort of look up to a higher power and try and sort that out, and then the next thing you know, we're looking within for that same higher power. So can you talk about that process? And also, could you put the title of that book that you put up into the chat? I just wanted to share with you, I'm somebody who has one of your books anyway.
Oh yeah, that's one of my novels. Yeah. You know, I've written a dozen novels, and I've written about 6 or 7 novels, and everybody that knows me kept saying, "Why don't you write about recovery?" And I went, "I don't know." So I wrote that book you have, Bill.
So the other part of that question is, when we talk about a higher power, a lot of times in the book, it's a masculine. It's described in a masculine sense. And can you?
What page are you referring to?
The guy. I was referring to the chat about the deep down within comment.
Oh,
but it seems oftentimes in our text and literature that God is presented sort of in a masculine sense. And do you have some thoughts about that?
Well, okay. So, and I don't mean to offend anybody by this. I'm also a recovering Roman Catholic. I brought up a Roman Catholic, so I believe, again, you don't have to recreate the wheel when we get here. So the God that I use was my Catholic God growing up, Jesus, and our Father. It says our Father in the prayer. So to me, the Creator is a male. I have no problem with anybody that their God is a female or their God is no gender. I don't have any problem with that. So mine is not for anybody but for me. So when I read the masculine part of that, it's because that's where they're taking it from. They're taking it from Christian writings, and the Christian writing refers to our Father. So, but when it talks about the deep down, it says not the idea. If I'm not mistaken, it says the fundamental idea right? Doesn't it say that?
Yes. Yes.
So that leaves wiggle room. It's the fundamental idea, not the alpha, the omega idea. It's the fundamental idea that deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, right? So God is in us, but in that paragraph, and I'm not sure what pages, my mind, after all these years, and I can't, I used to be able to tell you what page everything was on. I can't anymore. But what it also says on that page, the next paragraph, it talks about that that God is just as much, and I'm paraphrasing now, just as much there as a friend. It says right in the next paragraph of that writing, right? So what he's saying that is, if a friend is here, like, okay, my friend Tobias is here. I see him here. I don't know where he went, but here he is. But he's there. My friend Tobias is here, and he's my friend. I can't deny that. And so what he's saying is, what Bill is saying is that if God is here just as much as the fact as a friend. So here's my friend. I can't deny that my friend is here. Neither can I deny that God is here, because God dwells deep down in every man, woman, and child. And so if Tobias, my friend, is here, then so is God. And Bill, you're here, and so is God.
So is there a place in the process where the search for a higher power goes from looking up and out to looking within, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That was one of my biggest hurdles to get over when I got here, because being brought up as a Roman Catholic, I'm thinking God is up there in heaven and I'm down here on earth. And it's that journey. I don't know how to make that journey. But Alcoholics Anonymous flips that switch by saying it's not about God being up in heaven. It's about God being right here in me. And in every one of us, God is right here in me. And that is something now to take another look at this thing that we call God, because what we need, and this is very important, Bill, what we need is not just a relationship with God. We need a personal relationship with God. And that's what we need. And the only way to have a personal relationship with God is to understand that God is not up there looking to get in here. God is in here looking to get out there with you guys. And that the way we deal with God is from me to you. It's this way, not this way. And when we deal this way correctly and honestly with each other, we are dealing this way with God, because God is not so much in heaven. I'm not saying he's not in heaven, but he's not so much in heaven as he is in us. There's a part of God in all of us. And, I always thought that we need God. Yeah, we do need God. But when I got sober and started doing this deal, you know what I found out? God needs us too. And the reason God needs us is because how could God ever experience and appreciate his great creations if not through us? There's a part in here. Let me see. And this is interesting, really. It's again, I can't find the page, but it talks about the deep down. It talks about that what we have is we have this belief that we've always had these beliefs in God, and now it says with a better motive. Are you familiar with that phrase in the book? With a better motive. If somebody could tell me what page that is. With a better motive, we worship God. Practical.
Yeah, this went into the chat by someone named Sue, so maybe Sue could help both of us out with a page reference.
Yeah. Jesus, we feel so. It talks about with a better motive that we love God, and it talks about looking at a flower, the ocean, the sea, and that we and then with a better motive, it says we worshipfully behold God. Tobias, you know what page that's on, Tobias?
So that would indicate that the pathway to God can start with a view of nature and move towards something larger.
Well, it
The-
talks about with a better
the
motive. Why do we
design of
worship?
nature.
Yeah. It says, why do we worship God? And when we're looking at the ocean and the sea and the flower, and then it asks why, with a better motive. What's the better motive? The better motive turns out to be that the God in me, because I'm not the type of guy that looks at a flower and is in awe. I'm not that type of guy. I'm born and raised in the Bronx, so I'm running around the streets there. I'm not. So the ocean and the sunset, they're beautiful things, but they don't put me in awe like this. But with a better
How about
motive.
pigeons? How about pigeons, Danny?
Yeah. Yeah. But with a better motive, I realize that the God inside of me is looking at his own creation and through us. And that's the better motive, that the God in me is appreciating his own creation. It's like, have you ever created anything? If you have, when you're done, you look at it and you go, that's cool, I did that. Well, when I look at the sea, the sunset, or a flower, and I appreciate that with the better motive, then normal, what's happening is I'm in touch with the God in me. What was that?
Sorry, that's a customer of mine. I'm gonna go mute.
So somebody said page 54. Is that what we're looking for? Here it is. Thank you. Page 54. My mind, I don't know what's my mind. I can't think of these pages anymore. So it says, page 54. We found too that we had been worshipers. What a state of mental goose flesh that used to bring on. Had we not variously worshiped people, sentiment, things, money, and ourselves? And then with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower? So yes, all these things that we have worshipped before was me. Yeah, but now with a better motive, and the better motive is what we just talked about, that the God in me is in touch with his creations and he likes it. And that's why I say that God needs us too. Not that we just need God, God needs us also. Because how can God appreciate everything he's created without us? Think about that for a minute. So it's really the better motive is that the God in me is in tune with what's happening in life. Now, who's got a question now? Anna Marika. Again.
I think Kim wants to come in.
Hey, Danny.
Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, you kept missing me. I don't know why. That's okay. Maybe I was supposed to listen and not speak. Who knows?
Oh.
Okay. I was baptized Catholic. So I got my communion, and so the God of my childhood I believed in, but I was fearful of that God. And I turned my back on God. I thought God turned his back on me, but I'm learning that I turned my back on God. Now, today, I don't believe in my childhood God. The big book says I can make my own conception of God. So when it comes to step 3, it says made a decision. That's a huge decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. How do you make that decision? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, it doesn't say as I understand him. It says as I understood him. That means that you need to go back to step 2 and get the understanding. So when you get to step 3, you'll have that understanding that it'll be past tense, not present tense. But I understand what you're saying, and it's just a matter of what is step 3. There's different parts of the third step, okay? And what I believe today is that God loves me just as I am. I could be right now robbing a bank, and my God will love me just the same as he's loving me now talking with you people. I believe that because God's love is unconditional. It's called agape. Agape love is how God loves us. It's unconditional. Right, wrong, or indifferent, my God loves me. So if I really believe that, then the only important thing is, how do I love God back? And that's about how I live today, my life with you people and the people out there in the world. How am I living today? And that's the important thing. So once I start living that way, that I believe that God loves me in spite of myself, regardless of how I am, then I start acting as how am I loving God back today? And that means doing this, doing this deal continuously. God don't want me in church preaching to people. That's not my calling. But God wants me sitting in the meetings. God wants me sponsoring people. God wants me to have a sponsor. God wants me in the literature. God wants me doing these kind of things I'm doing today. That's what I believe God wants. And in doing those things, I now deal with people on an equal level, and I don't cheat them. I don't treat them bad. I'm kind and respectful to people. And if you're not kind and respectful back, I'm still not at the point where I can tolerate anything, but I don't have to hit you with a bat because of it. So I could just walk away, or I could tolerate you a little bit and see if we can help you at all. But that's what about loving God is about. It's about, again, it's this way. It's how I deal with you people this way, between you and me this way, and not this way. So I hope that answered your question, Kim. Anna Marie.
Yes, please. Thank you, Annemiek Addict. In the book says also you can have a choice. God is everything or God is nothing. Now, in my ears, when I say in my head, God is nothing, that is not true for me. And that I'm happy for. But God says for me everything. But how you can, maybe you can tell more about, my mother died when she was 28, for example. When God is everything, what does it mean for you? Yeah, I know for me what it means, but because I think God wants me to learn from everything and also from the bad things in life. So, how you see that?
Well, it's a simple question and a powerful question. Is God everything or is he nothing? Okay. Nobody is gonna, or hardly anybody, if you asked everybody, hardly anybody's gonna say God's nothing. But the majority of those people that say God is nothing don't live that way. If God is everything, then when I ask somebody that question, is God everything or is he nothing? And they say God's everything, I say to them, Why are you so messed up in your life right now? Why? If God is everything, what's the matter with you? It's rhetoric. It's words.
Okay.
It's not the personal relationship with God that I talked about earlier that we need. I need a personal relationship with a personal God. And I have to get that working in my life. Because yes, God is everything, but I certainly, most of the people I meet don't live that way. They don't act that way. If God is everything, then why are you doing what you're doing? If God is everything, why are you acting like that? Why are you living that way? You know, it's some people don't want to offend people that in the rooms. And our book says that, you know, sometimes it's a good idea and it helps when we offend somebody. Not that we do it out of maliciousness or spite, but we're doing it out of, you know, asking tough questions. And a tough question would be, you're telling me God is everything, but why are you living like that? Why is there no peace in your home? Why are you running around like you're bouncing off the walls, like you're drinking and using and you're not? You know, you might as well drink and use if you're going to act like that. So, no, if God is everything, why don't you act that way? Tobias, you got a question, my friend?
Yes, my name is Tobias. I'm a coward addict. Good to see you, Danny. And first of all, I missed the parrot. My question is like about step 10, really, because I hear a lot of sometimes confusing things about step 10, like having worksheets and I write my 10 step in the evening. For me, it's like what the Bhikkhu says is continue to watch, actually. And I have to do it immediately. But what is your understanding about step 10? People write it down, some people not. What's your understanding of step 10? Thank you.
I think when you're new, practicing the 10 step, your first time you go through this, it's helpful to write it down. But step 10 is not about writing down at nighttime. Step 10 is about the awareness of what's going on through the day. Listen to the words that it says here. Page 84. It says, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. As we go along. Doesn't say at nighttime when we get home. As we go along. So now he says, we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. It's not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Where did we look for those things the first time? In step 4. In step 4. So right here, he's telling us step 4, okay? When these crop up, when do these crop up? 6 and 7, right? We ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately. That's step 5. And we make amends quickly if we harmed anyone. So right here, in those few sentences, in step 10, he's given us the directions for step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So the step 10 is the first time we're coming to a step that's not really anything new. It's just a daily look at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to do. And, you know, we've entered the world of the spirit. Kim, if you're still here and listening to us, then what is the world of the spirit? It says right here, we have entered the world of the spirit. What is that? What is the world of the spirit? The world of the spirit is having the ability to be in a place, whatever's going on, and you have the ability to bring God into that, whatever's happening right here, right now. Or actually, Calvin, this may help you. if you've entered the world of the spirit, you'll have the ability to whatever's happening in front of you to get that God that you've got in your life and put him into that situation. That is the world of the spirit. That's where you live at when you're doing those things. That's a pretty powerful thing. But Tobias, to answer your question, it's step 10 is just 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on a regular basis. And it's not about the inventory at nighttime. It's about as we go along throughout the day. Throughout the day, if I made a mistake, let me stop and fix it. Not go wait till I get home tonight and inventory it and then maybe tomorrow make, no. It's to fix my things as I go along. I say step 10 is check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's what step 10 is. Good questions. How about, is it Nathalia?
Hi, yes, Natalia, grateful recovery addict.
Natalia, okay, hi.
Yeah. Hi. So my question is, I don't know if it's a question exactly or what is it about, but it's about step 9 exactly. So in my situation, it has been postponed with my sponsor and work gradually. There's a lot of trauma involved, etc., etc. I am now in my hometown back. I'm traveling, and I was very inspired, to write down some amends and to make some amends with certain people. And then I find myself that these people received me and welcomed me with open arms without even making the amends, right? So then my head starts saying, hey, maybe you don't even have to do amends, And then the procrastination starts very badly, because then, for example, 2 days ago, I had scheduled some time and I said, okay, I'm going to write down these letters. But then I ended up going to dinner with one of the people I have to make amends with, and not even making them, not even writing them. So is there any tip? Is there any, I know this sounds like I am making it my way, and my head is like playing games constantly and being like, you know what? You're okay with them. You don't have to do it. And the other side of me is like, damn well that you should do it. And then I end up losing time in a mental war,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
thank you.
the degree of humility that comes when you able to look somebody in the eyes and tell them what you did cannot be replaced with any other thing. As many dinners as you want to go have with them cannot be replaced with that. But it sounds to me like your problem, most people that are stuck on step 9 are not actually stuck on step 9, because step 9 is to just go ahead and make the amends. That's what the 9th step is. Step 8 is where you become willing to make the amends. And if you become willing to make the amends and didn't make the amends, then you really weren't willing to make the amends. You need to go back to the 8th step with your sponsor and go over who you need to make amends to, what are you going to say, what is the amends for, and then go out in the 9th step and make the amends. So, whether it's, if you have an amends to make, go make them. Nothing replaces that. And if you're not willing to do that, that's the 8th step. It's not the 9th step. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
Danny, sorry, I just want to say we'll take Jolene and then I think that will be our last question for the evening.
Okay. That half hour went quick. Go ahead, honey.
Hi, Shlena. Still an addict. Just a simple question for you, maybe, but if you have a sponsee and she and you want to explain step 2 to her, that she has to look. I said to her, look, in a couple of days, look for God. But I get sentences back that she found outside herself, but I was explaining to the sponsee that she has to look inside herself for the relationship with God. So when I'm meditating, I have my relationship with my God. I communicate then with my God. How can I explain that easier to a sponsee?
Okay, good question. Step 11 is about meditation, not step 2 and 3. So you can't expect somebody you're taking through the steps that's on 2 or 3 to be able to meditate on step 11 and find God. And when you tell somebody to find God, what you need to find is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and open it up and go over it with them. Step 2, step 3, sentence by sentence. What does this mean to you? Instead of you explaining to her about what God is, let the book explain what they're trying to get to us. And you ask the questions to her. What does this mean to you? What is this telling you? What is this saying to you? That's how you take somebody through the steps, not to give them your opinion or your or your. If you talk to somebody and tell them the greatest wisdom in the world, it's not going to help them nearly as much as if you let them find it themselves. It's kind of like the old saying: if you give somebody a fortune, they don't respect it as much as somebody that earned that fortune. So if you earn that fortune, you're good. So you need to go through the book and ask her what this means to you. What is this telling you? What does this mean to you? And through that process, she can come in to have an understanding of a God that works in her life.
Yeah, because I was emailing her and I said, look for a couple of days to find God.
Why don't you tell her to read? Tell her to read certain pages in the book, step 2 and step 3.
Yeah,
And then
page
after
55.
she reads that, she needs to ask you questions.
Yes.
And if she doesn't have any questions, she ain't studying.
Yeah, studying. Okay.
Yeah. So remember this always: the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is a textbook.
Yeah.
It's not a novel. You don't read it. You study it. Studying the book means you refer one page to another. You look up words you don't understand or you don't know. And so when she studies the book, she should have a list of questions that you can go over with her. That's how she'll get to the point where she has an understanding of God and a life that works for her.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me. It's been a pleasure.
Danny, sorry, there's just one. I know that we're like touching on time here, but there was someone that posted a question to me that asked, she's at work and she just wanted me to ask, where in the steps 6 and 7 to make a list of your defects and find opposites and the rest of the instructions that were mentioned. I'm not seeing them. I think she just wanted to know if there's a list of character defects or opposites, or is that in your worksheets or?
Well, there's 6 and 7 are 2 little paragraphs in the big book, and that's it. And I don't know if you know who Joe and Charlie were, but old man Joe was a good friend of mine. And years ago, we were both speaking at a convention. I was speaking on Friday night, and Joe was speaking on Saturday night. And I said to him, Joe, I said, why is there only 2 little paragraphs on 6 and 7 in the big book? And if they're so important, he said, Danny, if you go to a hardware store and buy a pick and a shovel, it doesn't come with directions. You just got to dig and pick and dig and pick. And 6 and 7 is the same thing. You don't need directions to know. Through your 4th step and your 5th step, you should have a list of defects. And the only way to overcome your defects is to not practice them anymore and start practicing the opposite of them. So does it tell you to do that in the big book? No. Do you have a better way to do that? I don't know of one. So 6 is 6 and 7 is not do what you want to do, make yourself do what you don't want to do. And 6 and 7 is all about change. And that will produce change. So I hope that answered that for you.
Thanks.